Hi, this is Micah Mitchell with Madison County Weather Updates. Since our clipper today really isn't doing a whole lot, we've got another clipper coming potentially on Tuesday morning. As is always the case with clippers, they're very disorganized usually, and they're really hard to forecast. So you can never really take a clipper forecast too much to heart. So we'll see what happens with the clipper on Tuesday morning. They tend to have a habit of either overproducing or underproducing. Sometimes you get lucky; they find their own cold, or they find their own moisture, or both. Once in a while, we get lucky and get a clipper that'll drop 6 inches of snow. Other times we get ones like today where the temperatures are marginal, the snow's kind of lazy, and it just has a hard time sticking before it melts. So, with that said, I want to move ahead. I've been pointing to the third week of January as potentially being our drop dead for seeing a significant pattern change. Does not mean it would be a drop dead for getting snow, maybe even a major snow. You just can't rule those out really until you get into mid to late March. Some of our biggest snows have actually happened the last 6 or 7 days of March. So, you can never rule them out. But as far as a sustained pattern change, I've been targeting the third week of January. I had a system next weekend that I feel like if it doesn't pan out, then that's going to tell us what we need to know about a significant pattern change. So, what I'm going to do with this video is point out the dangers of using forecast models verbatim. The most of the forecast models we usually see, and unless you're a weather dork like me or Kristen, where you dig into all the other data as well, what most people will see is what's called a deterministic model. It just takes the parameters that have been put into it and spits out, here's what I think is going to happen. So that's where you start seeing the images of something saying we're going to get a foot of snow, or we're going to get 2 inches of snow, or it's going to be 60 degrees, or it's going to be 30 degrees. Those are deterministic model outputs, and you really can't use those. I mean, we're even seeing with today, every piece of model data, had us picking up, 1 to 2 inches of snow anyway today, and it's just not panning out because the temperatures were wrong, and all it takes is one parameter to be wrong, and model forecast is out the window. So I want to take a look at this potential storm coming next week just to show the dangers of using deterministic models and either getting all excited because of them or getting disappointed because of them. And this will show why we don't forecast by the models. Forecasting is hard enough without adding that confusion. So what you're looking at right now is yesterday's GFS run, the 12Z GFS run. And real quickly, when you hear us say Z, that's Zulu, the same thing as like Universal Time or Greenwich Mean Time. It's just the time at the prime meridian where all time is started and ended at. So we tend to be during the wintertime when we're not on daylight savings time, we're 5 hours behind the Zulu time, and during the summer when we're on daylight savings time, we're 4 hours behind the Zulu time. So the 12Z model run yesterday would have been noon at the Greenwich Mean at the prime meridian, but would have been 7 a.m. at our time. Just so that you know what we're talking about with Z or Zulu time. At any rate, this was the 12Z GFS yesterday, and it had a good snowstorm coming. You can see it was very west to east oriented, and it had a pretty good snowstorm coming through. This is 24 hours snow totals. So, I mean, it had us at about 4 inches, maybe 5. Some areas out in Illinois more than that. So, this was yesterday's run. Here's today's run. It has shifted it all the way up north. This is the 12Z today. And now all of a sudden the snow is way up to the north and northwest, just like it's done all winter long. And so, today's models would indicate that the pattern is not going to change, whereas yesterday's GFS would say, well, maybe things are going to change. Take a look, and this was yesterday's euro. Again, this was the 12Z euro yesterday, and it really was putting down. This is, again, 24-hour snowfall for next Sunday into Monday. Actually, the euro was a day slower, so this was actually next Monday into Tuesday. Same storm, though. One of the things that triggers to me to not pay attention to models is I've seen a lot of things saying, well, the models are coming into agreement on this. But when you saw the GFS, it was laid out more west to east. Notice this is laid out more northwest to southeast. And then we'll take a look at the Canadian here in a minute. For some reason, the euro ended up out of sequence. I'm not sure why. So pardon my scrolling here. Okay, so here was the 0Z. The 12Z is just now loading. So I just went ahead and used the 0Z. But you can still see the shift. Up to the north, it becomes more west-east oriented like what the GFS had. So again, there's that big north shift. Then we'll come up here and here was the Canadian. This was yesterday's run, and you can see the Canadian was already to our northwest with the heavy snow, with all snow really, and it was more southwest to northeast oriented. And so now you've got, from yesterday, you had GFS west-east, Canadian southwest to northeast, and Euro northwest to southeast. So they're all looking at the same storm, but they're all looking at them at a different way and have different orientations. And when you see that, the models may be in agreement that there's a storm there, but they're not in agreement with where it's going to go. So, a lot of people are getting excited when they're looking at yesterday's model runs, thinking, we're finally going to get a big snowstorm in central Indiana, and we still might. But just the models were not actually in agreement on anything other than the fact that the storm is there. And take a look. Here's today's Canadian. It actually comes south. It's more northwest to southeast today, but it's very light. It really just doesn't give this storm much hope at all. So the point in these is, this is over a week out. You can't live and die by these model runs. When you see a model run that shows what you want it to show, you can't latch onto that and decide, hey, it's going to happen. If you see a model run that doesn't show what you want to show, by the same token, don't get all discouraged, because that's where you need to be able to recognize pattern drivers rather than just reading models. Sometimes you can look at a model and look at the pattern and say, this model makes sense for the pattern. And so that's a rare occasion that we actually will show a model other than what I'm doing right now, is if it actually makes sense for the pattern. And even then, it's usually going to be within a day or two before I decide to show it. One other thing we're going to take a look at here, well, not just one, but here are the temperature forecasts. Again, from yesterday's GFS, it had us, in the mid-20s at 1 p.m., next Sunday. Or actually next Monday, 1 p.m. next Monday. So then here is today's GFS. It's still got us, it's got us hanging around 30s, but you can see the big shot of warm air pumping up through Ohio that wasn't there yesterday. You can see all the really cold air is being suppressed back over like Minnesota and all that, and I wouldn't be surprised for that to modify as well. Here was a look at the euro yesterday. It had us in the upper 20s, lower 30s, which is probably where you'd want us to be, for the onset of a snowstorm. But you can see there was warmth off to our west, and that's not what you want to see. That was a warning sign also that what the euro was spitting out probably was not going to pan out. Here's a look then at the 0Z euro, and all of a sudden, the same time, it now had us up to 40 degrees and all the colder air back off to our northwest. And you can actually see some very warm air all the way up into Kentucky with the 50s. So, that's a radical change from, and just in the case of the euro, just a 12 hours, just one run. And here was the Canadian for yesterday, had us in the mid-30s. And of course, it had snowfall in northern or northwestern Indiana, which at those temperatures probably was questionable anyway. Again, brutal cold more out into the plains. Here's a look at how it has it today, and remember today it all of a sudden shifted to where to north to the west to southeast orientation, and you can see it's done the same thing with the temperatures. It's changed our temperature pattern, totally different from what it had yesterday. So again, that's why we don't really want to go by models, especially that far out, because just from one run to the next, they can totally go night and day from themselves, let alone any other data, and let alone from the actual pattern. I also want to take a look at how the winter is playing out. In our winter forecast, I said that I thought January would be the month that would be at the greatest risk to so-called torch. That's playing out, but not really in the way that it was expected by anybody. This is the CPC's winter outlook, December through February, and I kind of aligned pretty close to it. Although I did have the warmth, more into Indiana. But what has actually happened has been the opposite of what every single one of us forecasts. Here we had, based on the La Nina, we had a ridge in the south and warmth in the south, colder air back into the northern plains, and us kind of in the middle ground. And it has played out the exact opposite of what anybody thought was going to happen. It's actually been colder across the south and absolutely torched up to the northern Great Plains. So it's the exact opposite of what any of us thought was going to happen. And it just goes to show how much we really don't know beyond. And I said in our winter forecast, it really is just a crapshoot. There's very little skill in making a seasonal forecast, in my opinion. Even with Climate Prediction Center, they're going off of certain drivers, and the atmosphere is just not doing what it used to do when you have the same setups. So we can't really go off of sea surface temperatures anymore. That's becoming very clear. They're actually, even though we're in a La Nina, and it actually was a moderate to strong La Nina, this, what you're looking at right now, is more of an El Nino, where you're getting storms going across the southern tier of the United States, keeping them cooler, and warmth getting, surging into the northern tier because of an extended Pacific jet. So this has acted more like El Nino, even though we're in a moderate to strong La Nina. And there seems to be about a 6-week lag or so between when these things transition, so we may actually start to feel La Nina more as we get into February. February may have to be the month that saves winter as far as snowfall. But again, looking out into the Bering Sea, not seeing any real significant change from what it's been doing all winter. So we'll just have to keep an eye on that. Another thing I want to talk about while we're looking at an anomaly map, I don't like anomaly maps. I don't use anomaly maps. Here's why. Seems to be all-out war on Twitter between people who want it to be cold and people who are talking about it being warmer than average, and based on what it's actually doing. So this is just January, just year to date. And you can see again, it's been colder than average along the southern tier, warmer than average, extremely warm across the northern tier. And in our area, we're running about 5 degrees above average. And this is for the mean temperature. That's the combination of the high and low temperature. Now let's take a look. Yeah, some people will pick out the data that serves what they want to see. So I've seen some people point to this and say, well, it's actually not, torching, and it's really kind of not. This is the departure from average for highs in January. And you zoom in and we're running right around average, maybe slightly below average. That's kind of what I've got in, my computations for my location too. So you look at that and you think, well, the high temperatures, if you want to make it, seem like it's actually cooler, then you find the map that you want to find, the anomaly map you want to find that tells the story that you want to tell. Take a look at the low temperatures. Here's where our torch is. In our low temperatures this month, we're running 8 to 9 degrees warmer than average on our low temperatures so far in January, and it's really been this case even going back into December. The low temperatures are where our warm anomalies are coming from for our area, not the entire country, because the Northern Plains has been warm regardless. But for our area, it's been primarily on the strength of low temperatures. And when I showed you our historic patterns, that's kind of the same thing we're seeing, where the average highs have been slowly decreasing, but our lows have been increasing. And so it kind of skews our temperatures as far as mean temperature. So when you look at as far as winter precipitation and all that, if you look at this, you tend to think, well, we can't get any good snows. But really, with high temperatures running right around average, a degree or two north or south, we've had a couple of days that have been way above. We've had a couple of days that have been way below. But in general, we've been right around average for our high temperatures. Our low temperatures have been well above average, but that well above average is still in the 20s. So when you're looking at high temperatures in the low to mid 30s, low temperatures in the mid to upper 20s, you can still get good snows from that. The problem is, usually when you've got this kind of a setup, the storm track is not where we need it to be to get a good snow. So that's kind of what's going on. And as we're going to watch and see what happens on, out over the next week. Like I said, we're getting into that system that's to end next weekend or start next week, and it's going to track northwest of us again, or something happens where it's going to track south of us again. It may be time to stop looking for a sustained change and just realize that if we're going to get anything good, it's probably just going to be throwing a lucky throw of the dart at the dartboard. So I just wanted to cover these bases with you and give you an idea of, again, the dangers of looking at deterministic models and even looking at anomaly maps. You got to know what you're looking at to be able to decipher what's going on. You can't just look at them and take them verbatim. So I've rambled on long enough. We'll keep an eye on what's going on next week and beyond. And in the meantime, this is Micah Mitchell with Madison County Weather Updates. Hope you have a great day. Also, one last thing. If you haven't been visiting madcoweather.com, please do so. Get some traffic going onto there. It makes it easier to get people to want to sponsor the the website. If you, as an individual, can donate to us, be a monthly donor or even a one-time donor to try to help us maintain what we're doing and actually expand what we're doing, then that would be greatly appreciated, and we greatly appreciate all of you who have already done so, and we're very appreciative of Madison County Federal Credit Union for being our first business sponsor. So again, this is Micah Mitchell with Madison County Weather Updates, and we will talk to you later.